So hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. Okay, today's video has been a long time coming. We have Rick and Michonne's show, The Ones Who Live, starting up in just over a month. Teaser trailers are starting to be released. We got a nice up-close shot of Rick's boots. It's strange to be this close to a show and not have like the proper teaser trailer, but they are really teasing us with the trailers. Don't mind me just fighting up my hair trying to get it to sit right because oh my god. So I originally started this video back in, I want to say, August of last year. And yes, this video has been sitting on my hard drive collecting dust all that time. So I wanted to do a video all based on Rick and Michonne. I wanted to talk about like their roots, where they both came from, both of their individual storylines. And then, once they meet and they get together, tie it in and go on from there. Because The Ones Who Live, like I said, is starting up in just over a month, I think. At the time of recording this part of the video anyway. I thought it would be fun to look back on their time together, their history. They are two of the strongest characters in the Walking Dead universe, and in my opinion, they are the Walking Dead. They are the Walking Dead to me. So yeah, like I said, this video was just collecting dust on my hard drive, and I stumbled across it the other day, and I was like, oh my god, I never finished that. So I thought it would be fun to go back and talk about Rick and Michonne, refresh our memories before going into The Ones Who Live. Before we get started, the link to my Patreon is in the description below, where I do a whole bunch of other reaction content. Most of the stuff over there is Patreon exclusive, so it stays over there. So I do reactions for Gotham, Angel, X-Files, Star Trek Next Gen. There's film reactions, there's game reactions, bunch of stuff. So the link to that is down below, along with links to my Twitter, Instagram, anywhere that you can find me. On the topic of games, I know, I started doing a walkthrough for The Walking Dead Destinies. I really wanted to like it, okay? And I did. And then I got to the Rick versus Shane scene. I cannot get past that level, lads. You've taught me what I need to do in the comments. I know what I need to do. I know how to get past the level. I just can't do it. I swear to Jesus, I've spent the last 3-4 weeks trying to get past this level. So I can't do it. I have just given up. It really pisses me off and enrages me. And I don't think that that's what content or games should do. So I'm like, nah, I'm calling it on that. Now, that being said, I am planning to start up a walkthrough of Telltale's The Walking Dead. I've played this game before. I want to say I did it on Patreon 3 or 4 years ago, I think. But I'm in the mood for games, and I'm in the mood for Walking Dead content. So I'm going to start the Telltale's The Walking Dead. I'm going to put them up the same way I did with Destinies. So I'm going to put up maybe 20-minute to half-hour segments here on YouTube, and then the full hour-long segments on Patreon. So yeah, the link to that's down below. I'll be starting that soon. Maybe I'll have even started that before I upload this video. Do you know, I don't know. Now again, before going with Rick and Michonne, listen. There's a lot of spin-offs in the Walking Dead universe. You have Dead City, which is Negan and Maggie. There is Daryl Dixon, which is Daryl's centered show, and in season 2 it's going to be about Daryl and Carol. You've had World Beyond, which I loved. Tales of the Walking Dead, which has so much potential that I really do hope they bring it back. Obviously you had Fear, and now you have The Ones Who Live about to start. It's strange thinking that these all came from the one show, the one like mother show, the one universe. They all came from The Walking Dead. Seeing people argue and fight over shows is something that'll always kind of, I don't know, surprise me, because I've seen a lot of people arguing over what Walking Dead universe show is their favourite, what character is their favourite. But it gets nasty and it gets mean, so like I don't get how you can love a universe in a show or a character and then fight with someone else over the exact thing that you love. So please be polite and be nice about it. We're all here for the same reason. We love Rick and Michonne. So far as we stand, in regards to spin-off shows, Daryl's show has been my favourite. Daryl Dixon has been my favourite. I knew it would be because he's my favourite character. Him getting a show was just like music to my ears. I did still enjoy Dead City. I loved Fear. I liked World Beyond, all the other spin-offs. But what I have really come to respect about the spin-offs is that they all have their own tones. They're all completely different and independent to each other. They don't feel like The Walking Dead just carbon copied and lifted onto another show with a different title. Dead City was so stylistically different to Daryl Dixon. So going into The Ones Who Live, sorry, I'm so interested to see what the tone of it's going to be. I mean, it is Rick and Michonne, and they are The Walking Dead to me. So I wonder, will it take on more of a Walking Dead tone? Or will it be like completely independent of that? I'm so excited. I mean, who knows? For all we know, the whole show could be filmed in black and white. It could be completely different stylistically, but I feel like it's going to be somewhat similar to The Walking Dead. Some things that I hope we get to see in the show is I really do hope that we get to see, obviously, we're going to get to see Rick and Michonne reunite. In my opinion, that is the most important scene that we're going to get. Shortly followed by Rick reuniting with his kids, because he doesn't know about RJ. He doesn't know that RJ was born, and he hasn't seen Judith in a long time. So yeah, I really can't wait to see them reunite. I've seen a lot of people saying they want Rick to reunite with Daryl. Obviously, they're best friends, they're brothers, they've been through so much together. Daryl's in France. And unless Rick somehow ends up in France or decides to go on a voyage to France, I don't see them reuniting for a while. And he's probably going to want to spend some time with his lady once they, reconnect. But yeah, I'm excited to see. I just want our people back on the screen. I want Rick and I want Michonne back. There's a lot riding on this show and there's a lot on its shoulders. So I'm so excited to see what it gives us. Like I said a minute ago, all of the next half hour that you guys are going to see, I filmed like 6 or 7 months ago. I was going through my Beatles cut era. No one thought to tell me, hey, you look like a fucking idiot. So enjoy that for the next half hour. And I'll be checking back in with you at the very end of the video to continue the talk. So far I've done these deep dive videos on Negan and Maggie, Daryl, and an overview of the whole 11 seasons of The Walking Dead. But it's time to talk about Michonne. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do a very brief background on Rick first, right up until he meets Michonne, then take over, do some of Michonne's background, and then moving forward, their relationship together, how it changed, how it grew and developed. If my stomach does not stop grumbling. I have my dinner on downstairs, but no. Okay, so Rick Grimes, very brief overview, because we all know who he is. We know him, we love him, he's Ricky Dicky Doodah. We open the show with him. He wakes up in the hospital. Everything is just up in a goddamn heap. He gets smacked into the face with a shovel by Dwayne and then meets Morgan, and then we know the story. We learned that before the apocalypse, he was a deputy for the King County Sheriff's Department. He was in an accident that led to him being hospitalised, right? But his best friend, pre-apocalypse, ended up being his arch nemesis in the apocalypse because he decided to just go and shag his wife. Shane and Laurie get together. It's like number one of best friend code. You do not shag your best friend's person. You just don't do it. Anyway, but Rick reunites with his family. He finds his family with the help of the new survivors that he met along the way, along the road. He had his ass saved in Atlanta by Glenn in a tank. Glenn wasn't in a tank. Rick was in a tank. Why didn't we hotwire the tank and bring it home with us? But we can already kind of see him start to fall into this somewhat of a leadership role. People do turn to him when there's problems. People do turn to him for his advice on stuff. Season 2 then is a big old clusterfuck. Carl gets shot by Otis, so then Rick has to pick up his son and run to the nearby farm to try and get help. Shane then goes off looking for, I think it was equipment or medical supplies, and shoots Otis in the process to try and distract a bunch of walkers. And I want to talk about that briefly because Shane and Rick are two people that everyone talks about the two of them and how, Shane was just, ahead of his time and Shane should have been leader, blah, blah, blah. I've heard that take online and I'm like, well, I guess we'll never know what would happen if Shane was a leader because Shane tried to overthrow Rick and died in the process. So I don't think he would have been a leader because he tried it. It didn't work out for him. But I do think if Shane had somehow been our leader that we would have died long before season 3. But you got to give it to Shane. He did kill somebody for Coral, basically, to get back to Coral to make sure that we could return safely with what we needed. It was ruthless and it was fucked up and it wasn't necessary, not fucking really. How many walkers is one body on the floor going to slow down? 5. But anyway, he gets the supplies. We find out that Laurie is also pregnant around this time, and then that begs the question, the time-old question of who is the daddy? We never really find out because you can't. There's no such thing as maternity tests or paternity tests. Doesn't fucking matter anyway because we all know that Rick is Judith's daddy. Doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck. I don't care who the biological dad is because Rick is the father. Well, I mean, technically now kind of Daryl. Well, Daryl was for a while. Daryl took in Judith and RJ and became adoptive surrogate dad. Leave it to me to always find a way to insert Daryl motherfucking Dixon into the narrative because I will. Because I love him. Anyway, then we have the whole Sophia situation. So Rick, you get to see Rick kind of struggle with that a little bit. Rick had her out in the forest and left her because he thought that she'd be safe while he went to, I think he was distracting walkers that were nearby.
This is how we both survive, you understand?
Sophia then goes missing. We spend a big chunk of time looking for her. Turns out she wasn't missing at all. She was inside the fucking barn, dead. And then that leads to the moment with Herschel. So Herschel goes out for a drink after all of that happens in the barn. And Rick goes after him. And we have that kind of heart-to-heart moment.
That Annette had been dead long ago, and I was feeding her rotten corpse.
Which then in turn leads to us bringing home Randall, which is another kettle of issues in itself. That's not the saying, but it's the best one that I got. So we have this big tense standoff where we think that Rick is about to kill Randall, and he's there, the gun is raised, we are in the moment with him, and he only stops because Coral comes out of nowhere and tells him to do it. So you have your son, your little Shaniac child, because let's face it, at this point in time, Coral was starting to take on a bit too many of Shane's tendencies. And Rick saw, alright, well, if I do this, what's the precedent that I'm setting for my kid? And then Rick and his right-hand man, he tells Daryl to take him away, and Daryl just does it. Daryl's already been invested in this particular storyline. I mean, he tortured Randall, and then he was the one to bring Randall, like, away from Rick, and Rick was like, I'm not killing him no more. Get him out of my sight. Rick and Daryl are probably my favourite duo of all time in Walking Dead history. There's Daryl again. I don't give a fuck. We're going to talk about him for a second, because it fits. It fits. I mean, when they first met, it was so hostile, it was so full of aggression. And very quickly, Rick became the person to rein Daryl in when needed. We see it in the CDC.
Son of a bitch! Shane! You lost Shane! No, stop there!
Multiple different examples of this very early on. But I think Rick has somewhat of a good judge of character. I mean, he knew that he could trust Daryl. Even though these two dudes, they are people that would have never been friends before all of this. But very early on, the two of them just bonded. They were just like, hey, do you want to be my apocalypse brother? And the other one was like, yeah. So back to the Randall thing. When Rick was like, yeah, I'm not going to kill him no more, Daryl takes him away. And then we get to the end of season 2, that big dramatic standoff moment where Shane is finally killed. So Shane tries to lure Rick out into a field. I mean, one, where is your theatre? Where is your style? Where's your pizzazz? You're going to lure your best friend out into a field. A fucking field. That's where you're planning on killing him. What are you going to do? Hide him in a bush and hope nobody notices?
Even right here, right now, you ain't gonna fight for him. I'm a better father than you, Rick. I'm better for Lori than you, man.
So Rick kills Shane, and then Coral is the one to put down Shane's walkified corpse. Big moment for the Grimes boys. You have father and son bonding moment, killing the intruder into your family, the person that tried to come in and replace you as a husband and your son's father, basically. So big bonding moment for the two of them. It was traumatic, and not to make it lighthearted, it was traumatic for Coral, and it was traumatic for Rick too. This person who was his best friend before all of this, that he had to watch slowly kind of spiral, or at least tiptoe down the staircase into crazy in regards to how he was handling the apocalypse. And to me, I don't know, I think that was just proof that Shane lost it. I mean, you compare what Rick and Shane had to what Rick and Daryl have, right? These two seemingly best friends who are supposed to be like buddies in crime, friends that like try and take on the world, okay? One of them slept with his wife and then tried to kill him. One of them did not do that. I mean, Rick and Daryl, they do get into fights later on, and we do see them slap the fuck out of each other in a later scene. But it never got to this bubbling point, this boiling point, and I think that's just proof that Shane, I don't know, I think the apocalypse brings out the true essence of a person. And Shane got there very fast. He was a good character, he's a well-written character, very well portrayed character, but Rick has had his dark moments, and we'll talk about them, we'll get into them, but he's never quite gone just as off the fucking rails as Shane did. Shane got there way quicker, much darker. I mean, when has Rick ever tried to kill his best friend? When did Rick ever try to kill Daryl? Unless I'm wrong, I do not remember a single time that happened. So Rick and Shane aren't all that fucking alike. Oh no, I just had a sad thought. What if Shane didn't view Rick as his best friend? What if Rick viewed Shane as his best friend, but Shane didn't see it that way? That's even sadder. It's fine, because Daryl's in the wings anyway, ready to become bestie number 1. Daryl's waiting like on the outskirts, like, wanna make friendship bracelets? So for Rick Grimes so far, in the first 2 seasons, he woke up in hospital, had to deal with walkers, zombies, the fact there's an apocalypse, deal with the fact his family was missing, meet Morgan and Dwayne, be filled in on everything, and then he clippity-clopped into Atlanta and was like, oh sweet mother of Jesus Christ, I have made the biggest mistake I think I have made in at least the time that I've been awake. Then he found his family, reunited with his family. You have the whole Shane thing going on. You have the fact his son was shot going on. Then you got to deal with the fact he had to kill his best friend in front of his son that his son had to kind of help with. It's a lot. There's so many moral dilemmas in season 1 and 2 for Rick. I mean, he does go dark at times, and he does have moments, but he never really lost the essence of who he was as a person, as a human. he always pulled it back just before he went absolutely crazy. Even in season 3, when he starts like talking to himself. We'll talk about that. But even then, he pulls it back in. He reins it back in to centre himself again and ground himself again. But you do see Rick struggle a little bit with this new world when he tries to kill Dale. So Dale's bitten, dying, and we have to kill him. We have to put him down. Rick can't do it. Rick's faced with this person who was a friend, who was a staple in our little group. He couldn't do it. And then you really see the bond start to form when Daryl steps in and does it for him. Daryl knows, oh, this is rough for him. He can't do it. I'll do it for him.
Sorry, brother.
And yeah, I think little moments like that and little scenes like that aren't talked enough in regards to Rick and Daryl. Those smaller moments that aren't necessarily big and in your face, but where one of them will step in when the other one is faltering. And I love that. But that was the last season without Michonne. Rick is about to meet his future wife and mother of his future child next season. Alright, so we're going on to the next season, which is, I have to get my notes up. So we'll deal with season 3, because season 3 is a big one. It's where Rick and Michonne first properly meet. So we'll stay focused on Rick because we're still on the Rick train. We haven't moved into the Michonne train just yet. Laurie dies, which I know this is mean to say, but that wasn't really that much of a loss to me. I was like, oh well, that kind of sucks. I mean, it was traumatizing in the way that it happened because Coral was there. He had to be the one to put her down. Judith was born. It was a big moment, but I wasn't that attached to her character. I was like, oh fuck. Moving on. But for Rick, I mean, from his point of view, everybody that he knew, with the exception of his son, with the exception of Coral, who was just about to enter his angsty teen phase at this point. He hasn't entered it yet, but like Laurie dying really does push him over the edge into shithead territory, which is understandable. I get it. He's a young kid dealing with the apocalypse, dealing with his mom dying, dealing with living in a prison. There's a lot going on for the child, so I give him a bit of breathing space. But for Rick, everybody that he knew has died. His best friend, his wife, presumably his whole family, his whole social circle. Everything he knew from before is gone now with the death of Laurie. So then he goes through the tunnels and he gets his frustration out in, let's face it, I think it was a healthy way. He had a lot of rage, a lot of feelings, and he just went fucking dark side and cleared out a load of the tunnels. It's a win-win. He got to take out his frustration and we cleared out some walkers. But then he goes a bit, not healthy. He's talking to people on the phone and they're not there. Something had snapped in him for a little bit, but thankfully it unsnapped. It repaired itself. It fixed. Because we could have lost him. We could have really lost Rick. This was a very fragile point in time for him, but he came back from it. We do get a lot of other kind of dark scenes actually regarding the prison. He whoosh, your man into the head. Really cool kill, but still, that was a person, not a walker. But it was a complicated situation. So anyway, enter Michonne. We had seen Michonne at this point. She was with Andrea in Woodbury. She comes to the prison after leaving Woodbury and she brings supplies with her. We see her outside of the fence. They let her in, but they're still very cautious of her because, at this point in time, you have to be cautious of everybody that comes to your gates. Anyone that comes to your door is a possible villain, is a possible person who's going to try and kill you in your sleep.
There's a town. Woodbury.
So she's just doing her thing, doing push-ups and sit-ups and staying fit, I guess, because, my God, she is ripped as all hell. She has a fantastic body. And I just wish I had the willpower. It's not even the apocalypse. And I'm like, I don't have the energy. I mean, I do work out 3 or 4 times a week. But she's there doing it like it's nothing. She's doing pull-ups, press-ups, sit-ups. Like, you're in the apocalypse. Are you not doing enough? Give yourself a rest, baby. But anyway, he doesn't trust her and she doesn't trust him, which is smart. Not a great starting out point for a relationship, but it worked for them. The paranoia and distrust and the side eye was not a red flag in the situation. It was actually 2 green flags. They were like, hey, you're just as paranoid as me. Fucking nice. So now we're going to shift gears over to Michonne and talk a bit about Michonne. So she was first introduced when Andrea was saved by her. It was technically the end of season 2, but season 3 we really get to know her. We get to see what she's like as a person. She cares for Andrea. She's the reason that Andrea survived that winter because she wasn't doing great. And Michonne went off scavenging to bring back supplies, food, medicine to keep her safe. So she saved her life, basically. We learn later on, I'm jumping around in the timeline because it's me and I cannot stay linear for the life of me, okay? You're not here for linear. So we learned that she lost her child, Andre, along with her partner, who I think was called Mike. We learned that when everything happened, they went to like a safe zone or a safe camp. She went out looking for supplies one day, and when she came back, both boys were dead. Her husband or her partner and the partner's friend, Mike's friend, they were both dead, as was the child. Poor little Andre was also dead, had died while she was out. I cannot imagine how she ever came back from that. I probably would have either just sat down and headbutted my sword right then and there, or just gone and walked into a herd of walkers. I'd been like, okay, well, fuck, that's me done. But this explains why she doesn't like kids. When she's first introduced to our group and she's around Judith, we see her have this aversion to children. She doesn't want to be around Judith. She doesn't want to hold her. But we have that lovely scene where she finally does take Judith and she just breaks down. I think it's a multitude of, yes, it reminds her of the past, but also it's hope for the future. She's holding this little child that survived against all odds, that is alive in this world. And seeing something so pure as a little baby in this kind of environment, it must have been really hard hitting for her. In a later episode or a later season, we see her tell this story to Coral. We see her open up about her kid and what it was like to lose him to Coral. And he can kind of relate, but from the opposite way. He lost his mom, which I think is why Michonne and Carol were always such a good fit. They really did. They took to each other and they assimilated into the family dynamic so easily. I mean, there was a lot of distrust in the beginning, but once they gelled, that was like it.
It's for you.
I think that's why Rick and Michonne both worked too. They were both relatively closed off and suspicious people because they'd both lost as much as you possibly could. They both had been through the fucking shitter and were still here. And I think people who have dealt with trauma or have dealt with loss, they can bond and relate to other people of a similar standing to them, people who've been through similar life experiences, because you get it. A scene I loved with Carol and Michonne was the string cheese incident. You see her just be so silly and goofy, which is a side to Michonne that you didn't get to see a whole lot up until that point. You see Carol really bring that side out in her because she's trying to warm him up. She's trying to get through to him.
What are you doing?
Winning a bet in your dreams.
Staying on the topic of Carol and Michonne as well, because everyone talks about Rick and Michonne because yes, they are one of the best duos. They're one of the best partnerships couples of all time. But Michonne had so many meaningful relationships that get glossed over because of that, because the one she had with Rick was so strong. I mean, her and Coral, the claimed group episode where they're at the side of the road, the claimed group are attacking us. Yeah, Rick bites out your man's throat, which is badass. But a moment from that scene that I always really liked is you get a shot of Michonne holding Coral, and she's holding his head to her, and it is just such a mother-son, a familial bond. It is just... And both of them have murderous looks on their faces. So it is quite a dark scene, but that one moment of the two of them together. Regarding Michonne as well, one moment that always stands out is the moment with her and Merle. So Merle, my god, he's a piece of shit. We all know it, and he says some very fucked up shit to, around and about Michonne. We all know Merle is a fuckwad. But when he's about to bring her to the governor and hand her over or whatever, he lets her go. He lets her go and he puts himself forward to be sacrificed. Well, he doesn't view it that way. He really thinks he has a chance of going in and killing the governor and like ending all this shit. He does try it. He doesn't succeed. I mean, he dies. But he lets Michonne go. And the relationship that she strikes up with Daryl is interesting because Daryl is Rick's absolute best friend. And Michonne transitions from being Rick's friend to lover. But she always had such a good relationship with Daryl. Or she later on has such a good relationship with Daryl, I should say. Daryl's brother dying under those circumstances, and her and Daryl later going on to have such a strong bond, just shows how different Daryl and Merle were to each other. Michonne as well later going on to adopt Judith. I mean, she becomes Judith's full-time mother. Let's face it, she's her mom. Judith never knew Laurie. And I know that is sad, yes, but Michonne is her mother. She raises her, she looks after her, she teaches her the ways of life.
Judith!
And then later going on to have RJ, which sucks so bad. It is so horrible that Rick doesn't even know he has a son. Rick has a whole son and he doesn't even know. But Michonne having such a strong relationship with Judith and with Coral, and then later on going on to have her own child after the trauma of having lost Andre, It's just, it shows such growth and development and love and trust and security, that she is secure in herself as a person, in her partner as a person, and as a parent. So that was season 3, a little bit of 4. And I think, did I touch on season 5? I just want to get to the point where Michonne has to knock out Rick. That's the point I'm trying to get to, because that is one of my favourite moments where Michonne just knocks him the fuck out. Rick, it's after we move into Alexandria and we're all... we have assimilated. I think Alexandria was such a turning point for Michonne and Rick, because they move in together, they live together, and then you see them really start to blossom. When they're in a normal dynamic, such as you're living in a safe area, you have a house that has rooms and doors, and it feels so normal. You're not sleeping out on the side of the road or in a fucking forest. You're in a house, a structured environment. That's when they really start to blossom. They already did a lot of the foundation building of the relationship while they were doing everything else. But once they get to Alexandria, you see the relationship start to grow. I mean, you see her come out of the bathroom, you know, in her little towel. And it's just such a couple normal thing. But yeah, when Rick is going kind of nuts out on the street, I love that scene. Let's just play that scene.
If you don't fight, you die. I'm not gonna stand by.
She's the one that ends up knocking him out, because she's like, I've had enough of his shit. He just needs to shh for a second. The moment where they first kissed was absolutely... The Walking Dead gives us some moments that are just so beautifully romantic and so wonderfully done that you almost forget you're in an apocalypse show. You forget that, like, blood, guts, gore, just living isn't the end all be all of the show and of the universe that you're in. And them getting together was...
Have your meds.
Shit, I think I forgot to mention about her pets. How the fuck did I forget about that? So when Michonne is first introduced, she has these 2 pets. They are armless and jawless. They're missing all their fucking teeth. They are the first 2 pets that she had are her partner Mike and her partner's friend, the 2 that ended up, I think, I could be wrong, but I think the story that she gave, I'll have to go back and research this, but I thought the story that she gave was that they got high or they got drunk or something, and that's why they were like unable to defend themselves when they were attacked by walkers, and how her kid then ended up dying. They were her first 2 pets, and then she went on to just unjaw and unarm 2 other walkers. It was kind of like the Whisperers before the Whisperers. It was the Whisperers, but not as dedicated. She learned that if you walk with the dead, like very, very close to you, the other dead think you're just one of them, which was absolute fucking genius. Alpha was definitely taking notes. Alpha saw that and went, walking beside the dead. What if you walked in them? Michonne kind of similar to Daryl. When her and Rick first met, this is all over the place, I know, but I just love Michonne, and I can't like collect my thoughts. They're all just spitballing right out of me. When Michonne first met Rick, I feel like it was similar to Daryl. You have these 2 people who meet, they're suspicious of each other, they're cautious of each other, and then once they open up, that's it. Once they realise I can rely on you and you can rely on me and you're a good person, that's it for them. They both slid into being each other's right-hand man. So Rick has 2 right-hand mans. It's all right with him. He has Daryl and he has Michonne. But it's interesting, like I said, seeing the dynamic changes. They later move on into Terminus. Jesus Christ, no. Terminus was not a good point in time for them. When they move into Alexandria, we see them all. Everyone gets a part to play and a role to play. And you see Michonne end up being a constable or like a guard or a policeman, police person. Oh, my words are not cooperating today. Her and Rick are just so fucking similar to each other. But we see throughout them beginning to settle into Alexandria that she's not comfortable. She's not ready to let go of the past and the paranoia. So her and Rick, when they're living together, she puts her katana up on the wall as like a decorative item or whatever, her sword. Like a symbolic... I don't need this in my hand all day, every day anymore. I'm somewhat safe. I can take somewhat of a break. But you see her sneaking out in the middle of the night, killing walkers, trying to stay fit in terms of killing. Very strange sentence. So she's still unable to settle. She's still not comfortable. She can't relax back into this new life, this new world, this new place that we're living in. And after the whole Pete thing, we see Michonne take... I think she was about to put it back up on the wall and she didn't. She puts it back into the thing. So she's keeping it with her. She's like, okay, we can live here and be safe but still be cautious. We can't relax completely and that's okay. You can have the best of both worlds. We're going to Hannah Montana this bitch. We're going to Hannah Montana Alexandria. Very hard sentence to say. So that was just a mixture of everything from, I think, 3, 4, 5 and 6. A bit of 6. Just before 6. And if I forgot anything, I will be going back at the very end of the video and adding in some of my favourite highlights from both characters. But yeah, that's where we stand as of season
6. Why don't I know what season we're on? I had a list and I've gone off script. I had a whole fucking list of things to talk about and I've gone off script. That's what happens. That's what happens when the passion punches through. I have a clear, cohesive thing to say and then my brain goes, no.
Okay, so that was a very long video so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and condense and bullet point the rest of the seasons because, oh my God, did I get into detail. It's me, I ramble. You guys know that's what I do. Alright, so we're going to touch on the lineup. You have the goddamn lineup. I am biased, okay, because season 6 and season 7 are my two favourite seasons of The Walking Dead. Maybe even my favourite seasons of TV, like, ever. Because I was excited to see what happened. I was so hyped when we ended on that cliffhanger. Yes, I was mad. Oh, I was fucking furious. But you had all summer waiting to find out who it was, and everybody was talking about it. People that I know didn't even watch the show, watched the finale or heard the buzz about it online and then watched the season 6 finale and they had their own opinions on it. It just brought people together, and the fury that it caused when it ended on the cliffhanger, I don't remember anything like that in regards to a TV show. So it's special to me and I love it. But Jesus, for Rick and Michonne, that must have been rough. The two of them on the floor in front of Negan, you know, oh, Jesus Christ. And then you had Coral's life in, listen, I say Carol like Carol, so I always say it like a fucking idiot and I say Coral, because otherwise people make fun of me in the comments, so it is what it is. But I can't imagine the trauma. And then moving then from that scene slightly later in the show where you have the moment where again there's somewhat of a lineup going on and you have Negan about to chop off Coral's arm. Again, Rick and Michonne are both there for that. So I feel like growing close to somebody or dating somebody in the apocalypse is so risky, because not only do you have to worry about yourself, but then you have this whole other person that you care about and you love just as much as yourself. But they got through it, and there's little moments between them throughout the show where they will lean on each other, and it is so gorgeous to see that they're both really strong characters. Individually, they're very much like, I have my shit, like I'm good, I have my shit in a line, arranged, I know what I'm doing. So seeing them both open up to each other at different points throughout the show and admit like either I need help or like I'm not good, it's lovely. And I'll talk about a scene that involves that in a while, but for now we're going back to the scene where Rick tells Judith that Michonne is not his. Well, they were talking about Negan, trying to discuss a path forward, what they were going to do, whatever. Hearing Rick Grimes say that, I mean, as viewers, we have been wondering that since Judith was conceived, since Laurie said she was pregnant. I mean, that was the whole thing. Is she Rick's or is she Shane's? Because I'm pretty sure Laurie slept both of them around the same time, and it never really was confirmed which it is. Having Rick say that, to me, that still doesn't confirm it. Rick saying that, you know, that he knew Judith was Shane's, he knew that Judith wasn't his. That still doesn't confirm it to me, because you can't prove it. But that's something that he's carried with him all along, and it's been on his mind all along, that he's never said to anyone. So him telling Michonne that, that's huge. That unspoken thing that he's always kind of carried with him, and that viewers have always carried, has now been set out into the ether. It's been put out into the world. And it's Rick's way of saying, like, you know, things are what they are, is what it is, you accept and you move on, which is kind of what he was trying to say about Negan in a roundabout way as well. But that just reminds me that Michonne never met Shane. Honestly, I think it's for the best, because she would have fucking demolished him. Oh, I would have liked to have seen that. Watching Rick go and do something in season 6, 7, maybe 8, more 6 and 7, because he was a little bit unhinged there for a while. He was doing things that you would have seen Shane do back in season 1 and 2. Do you know what I mean? He didn't ease himself into it. He dove head first. And it's like, my guy, my buddy, that was your downfall. But yeah, it's interesting that people love him so much when he was really only in the show for 2 seasons. Then again, John Bernthal is a very pretty individual. Moving on to the I lay with him after scene. Michonne is a stronger woman than I will ever be. Her.
Yours.
We're together.
I lay with him after. You care?
We should get back to work.
Now you see it all over Michonne's face, and you see it all over Rick's face as well. They're not happy with this comment. My God, when I tell you that I would have absolutely impaled her with a random item of garbage near my hands, she handled it very well. Staying in the junkyard for a little bit as well. The scene where Rick fights the... What was his name? Was his name Winslow? The cool walker with all the spikes coming out of him. When Rick has to go through the trials of Jadis, she just shoves him down the side of a fucking garbage pile for no reason. once he comes out of that and you see him go straight to Michonne and he hugs her and he's gross. He's covered in blood, but he just wraps his arms around her, and we get a lot of really nice scenes like that where you can see their love. Probably one of the most touching scenes that we got from Rick and Michonne ever, in my opinion, and I don't really hear it talked about all that often, is the I can't lose you scene.
I can't lose you.
Making a future for Judith, for Glenn and Maggie's baby, fighting the fight. That's living. You showed me that. You can lose me.
No.
Yes, you can. I can lose you.
It is probably the most touching moment because she has already gone through so much. She has already lost so much, as has Rick. They've both lost family. They've both gone through so much, and now you have the fear of them losing each other starting to come to the forefront because the love has like developed into something so much bigger than I think either of them really thought. Even though they have bonded since she showed up at the prison with the fucking baby formula, okay? The bond has been bonding. But Michonne's the type of character who always keeps a strong facade, always keeps the air of someone who knows what she's doing, and so does Rick. So having her open up and be so soft with him and to voice that fear of I can't lose you, like I said earlier, being in the apocalypse is hard enough, trying to deal with keeping yourself alive, but loving somebody is like having a small little part of your heart outside of your body. It's like having it in someone else. You love them so much, and she was being confronted with the fear of what if I don't always have you? What if something happens to you? That is a terrifying thought. But Rick coming back to her and saying, yes, you can lose me. And him talking about everything we're doing is for the future. It's about moving forward. It's about building a better life. It's not the kind of love or speech that you hear in shows or movies usually. Because usually when you have a couple, it's the kind of like everything is roses in the garden. We are magical. We are amazing. It's like infatuation more than love. It's usually like, I'd die without you kind of shit, which I do eat up too, don't get me wrong. But that moment to me was just what absolute pure love, pure, mature, real love is. That, hey, yeah, like someday shit might happen. I can't guarantee I'm going to be here forever. You can't guarantee you're going to be here forever, but we'll be okay. We'll move on. Speaking of moving on, it's time to go on to one of the most fucking traumatic moments in the show, losing Coral. Coral gets fucking bit, gets goddamn bit, and you know what? What was it even all for? I don't mean to get like ranty, but what was it for? He got bit saving Sadiq, who then himself went on to die. What was the point? I guess that was the point, to show how meaningless and how cruel apocalypses can be, but oh, that's some fuckery. Anyway, yeah, he gets bit. We have to see Rick and Michonne both mourn the loss of Carl. I mean, it's the second kid that Michonne has lost. You have the grave scene where they're together and it's just so still. The moment of them outside the house is so still. The moment of them by the grave is so still. And I don't know, I think it just captured like the grieving process really well. But like they have cards or letters from Coral, and Michonne has to sort of talk Rick into it because he doesn't want to read it. And Michonne knows exactly what prolonging grief or hiding from your feelings will do to you because she has done it. Moving on a little bit then to the slitting of the Negan's throat as an example. Oh my god. They decide to make an example out of Negan, which is understandable. It's taken into consideration Coral's letters and all that stuff. But like, you have a guy that has caused so much fuckery and pain, not only to you, not only to your community, but to so many others. And you choose to just put him in a cell. I get it, again, maybe they are bigger people than I, because I would have fucking killed him. Also, I don't know what kind of magical doctors they have working in the apocalypse that you can just and then go, fix him, and it's doable. That would be hard even in the regular world. Anyway, yeah, so we use him as an example. But this, you see Maggie a lot like struggle with this, and Maggie has a huge problem with this, obviously. You see her in the clearing after Rick decides to save him, or after Rick gives the order to save him. Her husband was boinked on the head until death by Negan, while she was pregnant with Glenn's unborn child. I think that's a sort of fucking trauma and a sort of absolute vendetta that I just don't know she's ever going to get over. And Maggie catches so much shit for that. And in a way, the only way I agree with that is in terms of repetitiveness, right? You see it in The Walking Dead where her and Negan deal briefly with each other in different scenes. That's a whole different video in itself. But like, she is always going to deal with that. It's always going to be a problem to her, right? But Maggie has kind of found herself in this circle of, like, not necessarily forgiveness, but like, I'll try and overcome it. And then straight back to, I hate him, I want to kill him. And it's like, girl, I understand, but maybe you should just fucking kill him, you know? I mean, her child had to step in at the end of Dead City and be like, yeah, you're kind of obsessed with him and you don't really see me, you see through me, and oh, it's all very complicated. I don't blame Maggie. If she spends the rest of her life hating him, I'm like, yeah, alright, that's fair. I've seen a lot of people online take the stance of she should just get over it. Would you have the same opinion if your loved one was battered to death by somebody? Would you ever forgive them? Even though Negan has had a very interesting arc. Some have argued it's a redemption arc. Some have argued it's just simply a growth and natural maturing of a character. I'll leave that up to you to decide. But, yeah. So Maggie having such a problem with it brings in Rick and Michonne. They clearly love each other. They're clearly together. Would they have had the same outlook on Negan if one of them had been Lucille? If Michonne had been the one that had been Lucille, would Rick ever have even considered making an example out of Negan, or would he have just fucking killed him? And vice versa. If Rick had been killed, do you think Michonne would have done that, or would she have wanted him dead? I guess we can't really say because it didn't happen. But it's interesting to keep in mind. Hang on, I just want to bring in the coolest Walker killing scene that I think we have ever had in this show. Oh my god, the wire. You got mother and father in a car and wire in between and just I think I might have gotten ahead of myself at that point because that doesn't happen for a little bit. Forced. Oh god, my Jesus, I'm tired today. First I want to talk about the time jump. So we jump a little bit in time. They're together, they're happy. They're talking about having a baby. They talk about having a little baby. They have overcome the absolute grief and shock of losing Coral, which is lovely to see, and I'm happy for them because I can't imagine how hard that is. And we have seen other couples fail to do that. So you see it with Ezekiel and Carol. They can't get over losing Henry, and it tears them apart. So it's interesting to see both sides of that coin with both couples. The bridge scene, holy shit. Listen, I really, really love Denai as an actress. I'm pretty sure I've seen, I don't want to say all, but let's just say most. I've seen most of the projects that she has worked on. If I see her name attached to a project, I'm in. You have me. She's a fantastic actress. But there is just something about the way she plays Michonne that is just fucking different. The bridge scene, you have everybody crying over the supposed loss of Rick. Rick goes up there, does what he has to do, sacrifices himself to save his family and the people that he loves. Fucking hero shit. But Michonne stole that scene from me. Her just breaking down and crying, and the girls coming around her trying to hold her up. Visually, it is one of the most powerful scenes I think we ever had from The Walking Dead. And it still, like, gets me to this day. Something that also gets me is the fact that nobody else heard the helicopter. This fucking helicopter went or whatever sound helicopters make over all of us to get to Rick. Rick is down the river a little bit. He's downstream. Gets picked up by Jadis in the helicopter. And nobody heard the fucking helicopter. It's a quiet place. There's not a lot going on. After the explosion, that is. So now they are split up. He is believed dead. She has to continue on and keep the brave face on. Keep everything moving forward. You know, she was one half of an amazing team, but she is an incredible leader in herself as a whole, like just as one. So she has to continue on. We see moments of her struggling with dealing with Rick's death, but keeping that brave face on. We see her wearing his shirt, wearing his clothes. That just shows that she does still feel the fucking sting of him missing. After another time jump, you know, so after that time jump, we also find out that she's had RJ. She had a fucking baby. And Rick doesn't even know. Rick never even got to meet him. Rick doesn't even know that she was pregnant. Every time I apply lip gloss, I feel like singing Barbie Girl. In the middle of talking about zombies and grief and loss, I'm like, I'm a Barbie girl. And then moving on to what is her last episode in the show, her last big moment is the season 10, I think she's with Virgil. It's the trippy drug scene where she kind of visualizes and sees what would have happened if she hadn't stuck with Andrea and gone on to meet her group and to meet Rick. What if she'd gone a different way? What if she had fallen in with the Saviors, with Negan? We see her on the opposite side of the lineup, and it is just such a weird visual. I don't think she ever would have ended up on that side that bad, because I do believe that, like, it's like the domino effect or the butterfly effect, that every decision you make plays a part on where you're going to end up. Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, like, there are, you know, instances and situations that will sway you and move you and push you to do things that maybe you wouldn't have done had that situation or instance not happened you. But I don't think she ever would have gone that deep as to end up a savior or with Negan. In my opinion, I don't think she had that in her. But anyway, you see her visualizing what if this had happened. She finds Rick's boots. She finds the phone with the caravan of her and Judith on the phone, and she goes off to find the brave man. Now, she gets on the phone to Judith and she tells her, do you know, I'm going off to find the brave man. I might have a lead. And Judith is like, cool, yeah, go. She was okay with it. To this day, I'm still like, Judith, why didn't you tell anyone where your mom's gone? Your mom went off and you just... Where did they think she was? Where did they think Michonne went? Now, I know a point that I was seeing a lot around that time is that maybe Judith was afraid that if she told someone, they too would go off and look for Rick and Michonne. So, alright, I get that, I guess. Michonne caught a lot of shit for this when she went off to look for Rick. A lot of people were saying, how could she leave her kids? And initially, that is the kind of first thought that you have. It's like, well, she's just going to go off and look for him on a maybe. She's just going to leave her kids on a maybe he's out there. But you have to remember, her children, like, they're still young, yeah. I mean, RJ, God, what age is he at that time? Like, 7-ish? And Judith's older as well, remember. But, like, they're not babies. And Judith can look after RJ. We've had moments of seeing that throughout their time on the show together. And also, they're not alone. Michonne knows that there's people that are going to take care of them. I mean, you have Uncle Daryl, for fuck's sake. She knows they're in safe hands. They're not by themselves. So what, like, I don't get the fucking hate around that situation. I'm like, you're just looking for a reason to hate Michonne, in my opinion. Even though initially, yeah, I also was like, oh man, she's just fucking leaving. Like, what the fuck? But when you step back and you look at it, she knows her kids are safe. She knows there's people there that are going to look after them. And also, this is the first sniff of Rick that she has had in forever. Could you imagine the guilt that you would feel if you came across something, same way Michonne did, and it hits you, holy fucking shit, I think this is actual proof that he's alive. Could you imagine the guilt of having not found it earlier? Having, even though it's not true, you would think, I should have done more, I should have been out more, I should have pushed myself more, we should have found this earlier. I can't imagine what she was thinking at that point. So then we get at the very, very end of the show, which is so fucking fitting. We get the scene between Judith and RJ where she's giving that speech and they're overlooking a beautiful field and everything is really calm. And she says to him, we're the ones who live, which was just such a beautiful way to end the fucking show. I got it tattooed. I loved it so much. I went out like 2 or 3 days afterwards and was like, put it on my body. It's also a very fitting name for Rick and Michonne's show. Very fitting name for their show. We end the show there and then we get that scene just after with Rick and Michonne out looking for each other, writing notes to each other. You see Rick being chased down by a fucking helicopter. It's a perfect high note to end the show on because everyone was sad the show was ending. But you're ending it on a high. You're ending it on... Your two favourites are coming back. Rick and Michonne are coming back. They're out there. They have story to tell and they are not done. So it was a lovely way to end the show. Otherwise, I would have been fucking distraught if we hadn't got that shot. And a lot of people as well were saying, we need Rick and Michonne back for the finale. We need them back for the last fucking episode. Very smart way of bringing them back without bringing them back. Show us what they've been up to. Show us them off dealing with the fuckery somewhere else. But yeah, I hope to God, like I touched on, I mean, I know I didn't talk about certain scenes like the cat. I don't think I mentioned the cat. The cat that she finds back in season 3. It's the ceramic cat. And then we see Rick later give her one, like in reference to that one. There's loads of little moments like that between the two of them that are just so divine. Trying to lay down as much as I could about both of their individual characters before like the couple stuff was hard, because I feel like people do that a lot, especially with couples on shows that are so like iconic. You forget that they're singular characters too, that they exist outside of each other. They have a whole storyline, a whole plot outside of each other, or, you know, before each other. So yeah, I've really loved them. I've really loved watching them. They're probably one of my favourite TV couples. I think getting them back is going to feel like getting The Walking Dead back to an extent, and I'm so excited. What was that? Someone just growled outside my window. As well, when you think about the fact that their show, anybody could show up in their show. Anyone. They're not in France like Daryl. We know we're going to get Jadis. We know we're going to get other cameos. Maybe, what this says, Silas from World Beyond. He might show up because his storyline kind of led us to believe that he was going to show up in the CRM and all that stuff. We really could get cameos from a lot of people. So I'm so excited to see what they do with it. I just can't wait to have them back on my fucking screen. Do you know what? As weird as it might sound, we've gotten amazing content in recent years. I really have enjoyed all the spin-offs. But I would give fucking anything to go back to when season 7 was airing. I remember everything in such like minute detail about that era. So yeah, I can't wait to have them back and to see what they do. And I'm so excited to just get to talk about them again. So yeah, that was a briefish history of Rick and Michonne, what they've been up to, what they've gone through together. I think they're one of the greatest TV couples just because they're both so strong and independent individually, but then you put them together and they are just fucking unstoppable. Very rare do you get a couple that is so equally balanced like they are. And I love them. And I just love them. And I love them. Okay? I mentioned that I love them. But yeah, that is it for this video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. What's been your favourite Michonne moment? Oh my god! What are we most excited to see in the spin-off? Like I said at the beginning, the links to all my socials are down below if you want to come say hi. Then do that. Click on the links. Yeah, and I will talk to you all soon.